Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Huh? So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Your favorite podcast is Critical Blast.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Dean Zachary, host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham, where we go beyond politics, beyond calculation, and beyond the big two. Join us each and every Wednesday. Don't miss out.
Hi, I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Silver Sunday. We're going to talk about creating characters part 2. We already talked about this one time, and we covered a whole bunch of stuff, but we had a whole bunch of other things that we didn't really get to, or I didn't think we'd really covered enough, so I thought we'd do it for a second week, and I forgot to share this out on Facebook, so let me share it out really quick on Facebook. Share now, public. Yes, okay. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about that again some more today. And if you've been here, you know how we do things. If you haven't, what I'm going to do is take a few minutes. We're going to introduce ourselves. We're going to go over some sort of bookkeeping things, as it were. Talk about some stuff that we've got going on, and then we're just gonna dive in. So I'm Roland Mann. I am the chief wrangler here. It's kind of like herding cats sometimes when you get a bunch of creatives together, but it's fun and I enjoy the heck out of it. First up on Murderer's Row here, as I see Curtis Fujita. Curtis, tell everyone who you are.
Hello, I'm Curtis Fujita. I'm an artist working in comic books and video games and animation. I'm the creative director at Silverline, and I'm also the editor on Kaler.
Excellent. Next up on Murderer's Row, I'm seeing Barb's name, so I'm trying to say Barb's. Barb, you're next on Murderer's Row here.
I'm Barb Kelberg, and I am the inker for Cat and Mouse, the inker, the creator and the co-writer for Divinity, colorist for Sirens, inker for the new Ms. Fury type book. I don't know what the title is yet.
My shortened version is Champ Fury.
Champ Fury, yeah. And I'm the CFO. I'm the CFO of Silverline too.
Excellent. Next up on Murderers Row here is John Martin.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm the big hairy guy.
Every group
but I'm
needs one
the
of those.
but I'm the inker for on Friar Rush, and all around troublemaker and screw up. So
John's the one we've got to keep a close eye on. He's also got the what's that? Y'all seen the video with the horizontally challenged thing where everything's because he's doing it with his phone. Everything is straight up and not like this. Yeah.
I want to look smaller. Dang it.
Oh yeah. So you're saying that makes you look thinner? Is that what it is? I'll
Yes,
keep that in
yes.
mind. Next up on Murderers Row here is Becca Winslow.
Hi, I'm Becca Winslow. I am the colorist on Friar Rush, Marauder, and the inker on the Rejects.
Excellent. Now,
That's me.
Are we going to see some of that tonight? Is that where?
Yeah, I'm going to be inking some character designs.
Sweet. Very cool. The next on Murderers Row is Peter Clinton, who joins us from across the pond.
Hello, everybody. I'm Peter. I am the artist on the Champ and Miss Fury, is what I call it. The Champ and Miss Fury book, which you'll be seeing me penciling tonight. There's no other strings to my bow. I just draw. Okay.
Now, I think I heard a little bit of chatter before we started the stream. You're actually penciling on paper tonight, so
yeah. So I do my roughs tend to be digital, and then I'll print those roughs out on a blue line. And then I'll pencil just over the top. It just means I don't have to light box. I used to light box my roughs. It just saves me time. So yeah, you can see me penciling over my blue line roughs this evening.
Okay. Cool.
It also means I have pages to sell.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the key thing.
Yes, it is.
You've got to have something to sell. So yeah, and I'm better with pencil than I am with a stylus, the pen.
Cool, cool. And maybe donate a couple of pages to the Kickstarter once we run it, right?
I mean, they're not going to be cheap people. But,
right, yeah. It's funny.
They'll be on there.
Because in one of my things in class, part of what I do in my class is talk about how technology has changed comic creation, and I kind of hit on every aspect of it, from writing when before we had computers, everything was just on a typewriter, to today in lettering and et cetera. And one of the things I talk about when I talk about the creation of the original art is that a lot of professionals won't go 100% digital. I'm not saying they won't do digital at all, but they won't go 100% digital because it hits them in the pocketbook. If you have 0 original pages to sell, well, that can hit you in the wallet. So I kind of like the way I know that Barb and Tommy do it. They kind of look through the pages, and I'm like, oh, I can sell this one, right? It's got a big image on it or something, so I'm going to do this one
Those
on
key
paper.
pages.
Dramatic pages.
Yeah.
This page is just a bunch of talking heads. I'm just going to ink it digitally, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So very cool. Yeah. So we'll be watching that tonight, huh?
Yeah, I've got the camera hooked up, so you'll be able to view.
Sweet.
What I'm doing, yeah.
And next on Murderers Row is Aaron Humphreys.
Hey everyone, I penciled the Friar Rush, which we're doing a Kickstarter for right now. I penciled that book, and I also do my own comic, Gollings, which is webtoons all over the internet, my store. I basically just make comic books right now, and then I stream with these guys to talk about making comic books with these guys.
Sound a little bit like the Cheech and Chong. I make comic books and I stream about making comic books.
And that's what I do.
Yeah. And I see his name on the screen, but I don't see his image here, so I'm not sure if he is fully connected. But Chuck, are you there?
I'm here. I don't know where my image is, though.
Okay. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you should see a little camera that says "Start Video." Not sure. Are you on a
No,
computer or?
I don't see any of that. So I
Um,
got my voice working for.
yeah, we can hear you just fine. Well, because I know that if I move my mouse around on my screen, you know, I can, at the very bottom, there's a mute, start video, security. I may have a few more as the host, but then there are things like chat and share the screen and record, things like that. Breakout rooms, which we did once, and that was kind of fun.
Yeah.
We have to do some kind of brainstorming session sometimes where we go. I'm still saying I want to play some games. We get everybody together and we'll play some games and send everybody to breakout rooms. So that's the only thing I can think of, Chuck. But we can still hear you. So Chuck, tell everybody who you are.
Well, I'm another inker for Silverline and for a number of other companies in the past, and I've done a few of my own Kickstarter projects, including one on ghost stories that Roland actually wrote one of the stories for it.
I had a ghost story in there. Yep.
Yeah.
That you illustrated.
Yeah, so I haven't done many comics recently, but I'm working on White Devil right now.
That's right.
I think it's the second White Devil, isn't it?
It is. We're not. The other one was so long ago, and it's considerably different than this one, in the terms of tone and audience. So we're probably just going to call this one White Devil, and then in the legal put just volume 2. You won't need to have read the first volume to understand this one. Yeah, the first volume was considerably more adult. It was done along the same times that R.A. Jones did the Scimitar and stuff like that. So,
oh,
yeah, Chuck says, "Oh, I remember those."
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. We'll keep fiddling with your picture there. Hopefully, you get it worked out, and we can see
I'll
your.
try and fix that.
So I see some hellos there. Wubba says hello. Peter says it's you use the same method he does. Phil Leon says, "Hey there, Silverline peeps. What's up, Phil Leon? How are you?" Chuck, looks like you got your video worked out. Woohoo!
Is it working?
I think so. I see your face.
Yeah,
Although,
I got an image up now, but I don't think the video is actually working.
Yeah.
No, the video is working, but he's got an image up too.
Yeah, I think he's sharing his screen.
Oh.
Yeah, I think you're just sharing your screen.
Oh.
There you go.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I see you now.
Okay, I'm back.
Hey, woohoo! Welcome back, Chuck. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk about before we get in here is we've got a merch store. So we're gonna start showing you a picture of some of the merch we got up. So Brett, pop up that mug. But here's something that we're gonna add to this, and I don't know how I can see that when you've got it up. I guess I'm gonna have to go to one of the streams, huh? Anyway, so this is one of the mugs that you can get through the merch store. Sorry, I turned something on and then I hear voices and I have to stop it. And sometimes it's Brett. Oh, I forgot to introduce Brett before we go on. Behind the scenes is the I Am No One, my son, who is our producer. He makes all the images pop up there, and you'll occasionally hear me say, "Hey, Brett, do this." I'm not just talking to myself; I'm talking to my son. So yeah, you can go to our merch store and you can grab this really nice Silverline mug. There's some other stuff there, and we're going to be adding stuff as we go along. But here's one of the things we'd like to do. If you find something on the merch store and you order something and you get it, send us a picture that has you and your merch. Like if you get the mug, send us a picture of you going right with your mug, and we can put that on our stream. Or if you get a t-shirt, send us a picture of you in the t-shirt, right, going, "Hey, look at my t-shirt," and we'll put that on the stream when we talk about our merchandise here. So yeah, and if you've got a request for something, if you saw an image from a comic book, you go, "Hey, that would be just cool on a mug or other paraphernalia that is available on the site. I think we use Zazzle. I think
Page 20 would make a nice T-shirt.
Page 20 would make a nice T-shirt. Oh, that's the one with the big dragons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. We might have to see. I have to talk to the merch store supervisor and see what we can't get going there. But yeah, so feel free to make requests, y'all. That's the cool thing about the merch store that we have is it's not something that we have to keep in stock. It's not something that we have here. It's something that we can arrange and put it together, and then we don't even ever see it. If you order something off the merch store, we get an email that says, "Hey, you sold something off the merch store. Here's your $1.50," right? So pop on over there and take a peek. Yeah. So I think that's all that I need to do to make sure you like, subscribe, follow, all that other kind of stuff that you're supposed to do, right? Anything else I'm supposed to do? Everybody good? I think we're good, right? Yeah. So let's dive into talking about part 2 of character creations. Now this is something I actually enjoy, which is maybe why I pressed for a part 2, because I think it's important that your characters are well defined, because sometimes you can read a comic or a book or whatever, and you get in there and you're like, the character's weird, or you don't get why they're doing stuff, and they're poorly defined. And I would suspect it's because the creator didn't take enough time to develop it. What I think you want to be able to do when you're the creator, when you're the writer, when a character enters into a situation, you want to be able to know what that character would do based on that character. Not what you would do, but what that character would do. And I think the more you can develop the character, the more you'll be able to know that. So one of the things that we were talking about just a little bit, Noah the Hot Potato says, ain't no party like a Silverline Comics party. And we agree. So one of the things we were talking about a little bit just before the stream started is like, what's the difference between origin and background? And Barb came up with a good explanation. Barb, you want to repeat the explanation there for everybody so they'll know how we're kind of moving forward? You're muted, Barb.
We were discussing it, and I said, everybody would know what your own backstory is, your background. So let's take Bruce Wayne / Batman as an example. Everybody knows that his name is Bruce Wayne. He had parents, Martha and Thomas Wayne. He's the heir for Wayne Manor. He lives in a nice big house, a mansion. He's got a butler named Alfred. All of that is backstory. An origin story is what caused him to become Batman. And of course, there's like 24 different stories out there in DC. They've changed the origin story every 5 months. But it's what was the event or the happening that forced him to become Batman. That's his origin story.
I agree. Anybody want to add anything to that or have anything?
I think she pretty much.
No, I think it seems like that's a pretty good. I think like we were talking about, it seems very specific towards superheroes, which is interesting. Now I was trying to think if there's any more genres of fiction that you could use. I would say fantasy, maybe.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this.
Yeah.
We touched on Star Wars, and we said, would Luke Skywalker have become Luke Skywalker, the Jedi Knight, if he had been left alone on his little farm on Tatooine? I don't think he would have. I think he would have grown up and become another farmer. There wasn't anything to force him to become a Jedi Knight. So I think that's an origin story.
Would you would you say almost the original Star Wars movie is almost an origin story of Luke?
Absolutely.
And then that would be okay. Because it's a little different because Batman, the origin the origin story of Batman would be the death of his parents and the bat flying in the window.
Yep.
No, see, now that's
okay, so it would be
5 dozen different falling
Yeah.
down a cave. There's another one, and there's like half a dozen or more origin stories that they've come up with.
That contribute to that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
So
But the
does
death
that
of his
mean the
parents is different.
prequels? Does that mean the prequels are Anakin's origin story, or Vader's?
Yeah,
That's a
that was
good
the idea,
question.
wasn't it? Wasn't that the idea that the
They
whole
were-
idea was meant to be the origin of? Well, it is the origin of Darth Vader because the whole Star Wars thing
Or
is
Yeah.
Skywalker's.
Yeah, I would say it would be
Or
the
is it the origin of the original trilogy?
It's a bit of
That's an
both, isn't it? You can't have Star Wars without
yeah.
Darth Vader, can you? Or Anakin Skywalker.
So why
No.
can't we have two origin stories? It doesn't have to be one origin story for the entire series. We can have, I mean, they're broken down into trilogies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have the Joker's origin story as part of Batman, right?
They ever revealed the origin story of the Joker?
Well, I
Killing
mean,
Joke kind of did.
Yeah.
multiple times.
I mean,
Yeah.
Isn't there a new series coming out with Jeff Johnson, Jason Fabok doing the three Jokers? Isn't that meant to be like a?
Yeah, I think that's supposed to be like an origin.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird because I guess you think of origins of characters as specific moments, so it's different to think of them as like the story. But then, I mean, yeah, okay, yeah, that works.
And their backstory was, who were they before this
Yeah.
event happened that turned them into the character that we know and love today?
it always seems that the backstory, the more humble, the more relatable, the more fantastical you can go with the origin story. But the
Clark
backstory is
Kent
always,
growing up on a farm in Kansas. you mean?
yeah. I mean, always seems to be the case. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah. All right, Becca. Brett says you need to share your screen.
Okay.
So yeah, I think I think so. So one question is, does the background then affect or determine the origin? Does one?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean,
I'll
nature
say-
versus nurture. I mean, you've definitely got that nature versus nurture thing going on before they become the person. I mean, if you've got a person, a character that's been raised in horrible circumstances, they're more likely to become a villain than a superhero. You've got to have ethics and morality taught to you to become, I think, a superhero.
No,
Yeah. C. Michael Lanning says, "What's up, C. Michael?" He says, "About Luke, you have to remember he wanted to become a pilot before the Obi-Wan incident."
Wasn't true. Wasn't his destiny though. That was his. You can get into a whole deep dive with Star Wars. Considering that Obi-Wan was already there watching him, waiting to make him the Jedi that was going to save the universe, the galaxy. Yeah, so Luke's origin began before he was even born, didn't it? Really. But no, I'm not going to deep dive into Star Wars. That's not what we're here for.
Yeah. Wubba says he agrees with Barb. He thinks that Star Wars is a telling of multiple origin stories. And I think that's probably right too, because when you introduce the characters, when you introduce new characters, you tend to have to tell multiple origin stories, don't you? I think so. I think it's that way in comics as well. If you're introducing new characters, then you've got to let the people know who they are. So what do you do? Oven says, "Hello, Silverline family." Hello, Oven.
Hello.
So when you're introducing characters, how important is it that that you tell the background and or origin story immediately? When do you tell it, et cetera, et cetera? Talk about that a little bit.
I think that depends on the story. I mean, if you're writing a mystery, then the actual background or the origin of a character could be part of the main plot, which I guess it should be. I don't know. It's weird because I mean, there's some stories like I guess longer form stories that would take time out to talk about the background of a character, even if it doesn't particularly apply to the plot. Sometimes they'll do that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think the origin needs to be at the start. You
No.
you can start your story at the end. That doesn't matter. Just
Right.
so long as you make your character, as long as I guess it has to be in there at some point to understand where the characters come from. It's
It could be
easier to
interwoven
start.
through the story too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the way that we did it with Divinity. We started right off at the bat on the first page showing her abilities, and then we backtracked.
Yeah, comics is one of those things, isn't it? You could, if you just did the origin, it could be a fairly mundane origin. Therefore, you're going to do 2-3 issues of talking and walking around doing nothing. But it's a visual medium, isn't it? So you have to start with something to hook them in, some action thing, and then you can go into working.
We started with
later.
the hook, and then we kind of, 48 hours earlier.
You need that splashy that splashy page to get people. Oh yeah, I'll pick this book up. I'll buy this book. This looks cool.
Right. Yeah. And I think that we definitely have to remember that. And sometimes writers more than artists need to remember this, is that it's a visual medium, and that 16 pages of talking heads is really visually boring. I would imagine it's boring to draw as well. Not having drawn it, I can't say that for sure, but it can be very boring to read because it's a visual medium. I want to see some stuff happen. You can get away with stuff in novels that you can't do in comics, right? Yeah. And vice versa is the same. You can do a lot of things in comics that you can't do in other medium, right? And the first one, of course, and I'm straying off just a little bit. The first one, of course, is the interiority of the characters, right? You can use thought balloons. I know they're a little passe today, but you still see them. You can use thought balloons. You can certainly use first-person narratives. You can have one panel that has 3 characters in the panel, and each of them can have a thought balloon, so that you can get the perspective of 3 different characters in one panel. You can't do that in any other medium, right? You can't do that in prose because that's called head hopping, and that's a major no-no. But yeah, so we're trying something a little bit different this time. If you're watching the screen, been kind of going back and forth with Brett some. And so we've got 2. If you're seeing the screen, you're not seeing our smiling faces at the moment. You're seeing on the left-hand side, you're seeing inks done by Becca. And then on the left-hand side, you're seeing pencils by Pete. So you guys want to take, what's that? Right-hand side, what did I say? Did I say they were both on the left-hand side? Okay. Becca's on the left-hand side, Pete's on the right-hand side. I think you might be able to see on Pete's image, you might be able to see Pete's iPhone. So Becca, talk for just a minute about what you're working on, just so that folks will know what they're watching.
I am working on some character designs for the up-and-coming comic Rejects that Roland has written, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. Sorry, what?
No, I was gonna say, and the pencils are done by C. Michael Lanning.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool. Do you remember that character?
I have her name written.
Barb will appreciate this one.
Divinity.
Yeah.
This is the one that you had told me about the other day. Yeah.
Yes, I sent Barb a long email. I'm like, okay, here's the story of what happened with Divinity, and her email response back was, I probably 200 words maybe. Her response back was like 4 words. LOL. That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, how many Marthas do we have in comics?
Right. Yeah. Cool. So you look like you're almost done with that one.
Yeah, I'm just putting some like last little details and fixing up some line work for sheeting and stuff.
Cool.
And I'll be uploading that soon.
Nice. And Pete, what about you? What are you working on there?
This is page 6 of Champ and Miss Fury. So I've just started penciling. Yeah, I'm sure you can see what I'm penciling.
Yep, we can
Not
see
just
it.
looking at blue lines. Yeah. So this is Champ carrying a baby out of a burning building, because
Nice.
that's the sort of guy he is. He doesn't just leave them there.
That's right. A hero's got to do heroic things.
He's got
right?
to do these things. Yeah.
That's right. Cool. The rest of us are still here though, so we haven't disappeared. Dempsey Blackman says, "Happy to be here. What's up, Dempsey? Hey man, asking some questions if you got questions about creating characters." So Chuck, what about you? What do you think? Get you in here. What do you think about backgrounds and origin stories? You think they're important to work in early? Do you need them early? Do you need them late? Do you need how much details do you got to give?
Well, I like to work them in as soon as possible because you're dealing with comic, and maybe it's a 4-issue miniseries, or maybe it's however long it is, but you're getting things in chunks. And so I like to work in the first issue, what the major points of the character's origin are going to be. That's just personal preference on my part.
Yeah.
And I think every writer has a different way of, a different idea about that.
Yeah. I know if we look back at classic, and so whenever I talk about, mainstream comics, for those who are paying attention, I'm going to default to Marvel because that's I was a Marvel zombie as a kid. That's what I grew up with. Not that I don't know any of the DC characters, but I just automatically go back and think Spider-Man, the Avengers, and all that kind of stuff, right? But when you go back and look at some of these classic characters, the first issues were generally their origin stories, right? We see the first issue of the Fantastic Four. We are introduced to the characters. They go out into the space, they get shot by the gamma rays and come back, and boom, they all have powers. It sets them up then for the rest of the series and for the next 70 years so far. Spider-Man's though came in Amazing Fantasy 15, right? It wasn't issue number 1 of Spider-Man.
Right.
Yeah. What was issue number 1? Does anybody know the story of issue number 1 of Spider-Man?
I think, wasn't that he met the Fantastic Four?
I think so. Yeah.
So he tried to join the Fantastic Four, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think he tried to, because he had the powers, he had the suit and everything. So I think he tried to join the Fantastic Four and then decided he didn't want them because he was a hothead back then a bit.
Yeah.
I think that's right. But you look at something like the Avengers, right? The Avengers, the first issue, it wasn't necessarily the origin of Cap, and Cap wasn't in there till issue 4, but Iron Man and Hulk and Thor, because those were characters that already existed. But it was, however, the origin of the Avengers as a team, right? I'm not sure why I'm doing hand air quotes because nobody can see us, right? But it was the origin of the Avengers as a team. So Dempsey has a question that says, when y'all are creating characters, what do you focus on first? That's good. And since name is going to be one of the things that we're going to talk about here in a bit, I'll toss it in. What do you focus on first? The name, the powers, the origin, the background, story, the plot. What about it? Someone jump in.
I think it's the background. I think I sort of start by creating the characters. I have to create their background. I think I have an idea of their personality. Perhaps it's personality. I start with their personality, and then I figure out why they're like that. I don't write too much. Barb, what do you?
Yeah, I started with the power, and then it was almost instantaneous for me, the power and the fact that it was a young girl, and then it built out from there. I had to I had to come up with the background after the origin story. Actually, I knew how she got that way. I knew what her powers were. I knew that she was a young girl. I knew that she would have an older brother. And I knew, but I didn't have a name. I didn't have a backstory. I didn't have the parents. So that all came afterwards.
But you started off your initial thoughts were you knew the power, you knew you wanted her to be a young girl with an older brother.
Right.
Okay.
And I knew I wanted it to be kind of like, a road type of show where they're off, having adventures. It wasn't going to be stuck in Gotham City or anything like that. I wanted them to be out and about. But everything else came back afterwards, including the name, which took me a long time to come up with.
Okay. Somebody else jump in.
Mine's always been motivation. What does the character want in the story? Or what is his place in the story? And then I design my characters based around how they would fit. But I'm much more of a plot-driven writer than a character writer.
So you would say yours was more of story-driven. You come up with the story kind of, you want this kind of thing to happen in the story, and then you make the characters kind of fit.
Yeah, I mean, my initial story idea was like, what if a bunch of young gods didn't want to be gods? Like, everyone wants to be a god, but what if you didn't want it? That was the question. Then from there, I just like, okay, well, that's the main motivation of the character, and then I just designed them from there. But I usually start my stuff with a question of what if, and then I design the characters from that point.
That's very cool.
How about you, Roland?
I saw Curtis about to jump in.
Oh yeah,
it looked like he's on a game show and he's reaching for the button, right? I want to go. I'm next. Yeah.
I just thought it was interesting. We're talking about like superheroes and powers and stuff, because that's kind of one of the funny things about creating characters in comic books, right? Is okay, I have this cool idea for a character. He's the Human Torch. He's on fire. I think he should have a really good, easygoing personality. Be like the calmest guy out there. It's not usually like that. It's almost like the chicken or the egg kind of thing. Well, does he have a hot fire personality, and is he impatient because he has the fire powers, or was the character created first and the powers match? But we have that neat interplay in comic books between powers and personalities. I mean, Wolverine's abilities are based on his personality, or vice versa. I don't know. It's just something, just a comment,
Yeah, that's actually interesting. And I kind of wonder, if we were to actually go and do some kind of census with all our characters, how would that kind of match up?
And what's interesting about Divinity is she's new to her power, so this isn't going to affect her down the road. But she's also an 11-year-old girl, so she's not fully formed yet. She hasn't fully cooked. And as anybody knows, if anybody's got a preteen out there or has experience going through the preteen years, it's chaos. It's absolute chaos. Half the time they're 7, and half the time they're 17. And she's an 11, so she's right there in the middle. She's confused. She acts like a child at one point, and then an adult at the next, and it's a complete chaos. So that's something that has to fit into my story, into my personality when you're developing the personality.
I'd say I'm a little all over the board as to kind of how it happens, because sometimes you just kind of roll with wherever the creativity takes you. But for instance, you were talking about I'll talk about cat and mouse here. So one of the things I definitely wanted to do was the idea of and I'm going to show age here, but you guys remember Moonlighting, the TV show Moonlighting?
Yep.
And certainly maybe this was a more recent. Pete's like, no, I don't remember.
It's Bruce Willis. It's Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis and
Bruce
Sybil Shepherd.
Yeah. What about Bones? You've heard of Bones, though, right? You see?
Oh yeah, of course I know Bones.
Yeah. So early in those shows, there was a bit of a romantic chase / conflict between the two primary characters, right?
UST, unresolved sexual tension.
So I wanted that because the for me, the images of cat and mouse conjures up images of a chase, right? You see so many people talk about, oh, we're in a cat and mouse game, which means they're running and chasing, and Tom and Jerry. Can't tell you how many people when I've mentioned the name Cat and Mouse said, "Oh, like Tom and Jerry." I'm like, well, no, nothing like Tom and Jerry at all, but but okay. And so for me, that's what I wanted. I wanted to have that kind of. I wanted the two characters to have that kind of relationship. Everything then kind of built one upon the other because I wanted to tell a street level story, a la Batman and Daredevil and kind of that kind of thing. And so ended up being, the ex cop, and I'm a huge fan of the Robin Hood stories, the underdog, the guy who helps the people who need the help, and that's kind of how the idea of Cat and Mouse came about. For Demon, it was a little bit differently though. For Demon, I would say Demon was my attempt not to blatantly swipe a Marvel character. Because I was so enamored by the version of the Beast by Steve Englehart and George Perez when he was in the Avengers in I guess that would have been the 70s, right? The Beast personality at that point in time was just, and the Beast's personality has changed a lot over time, as well as his look and all that kind of stuff. But there was something about that character that really drew me. And so I wanted a character like that. But obviously I couldn't do the Beast because, copyright stuff. And I was not aware when I came up with the name Demon, I was not aware of the DC character at the time, or I might have searched for a different name. I don't know. But yeah, that was kind of how I wanted a character like that. And so that's how he was born. I got two new characters that we're working on that we'll probably show later. And they came simply from the name. If anybody is familiar enough with Cat and Mouse, that I have this thing for these duo names, right? So Cat and Mouse, one of their first villains was Tooth and Nail. Their second villains was Skull and Crossbones. So I've just got this thing for these dual names, and I've got a detective partnership that I've got long range plans for, and they're essentially detectives Marble and Mud, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, you because of the conversation we're having, you know where I'm going with that, right? Yeah. Any other thoughts there? There's a couple of questions here. Anybody have any thoughts?
I have a question.
Okay.
Just for the people who do the writing and stuff. It's interesting because we're talking about origins, but are you familiar with? I've seen it in film. I don't know how much I've seen it. I've seen it in comic books too. But this idea of the character's backstory, origin, coming way later, like they're the mystery man.
Yeah.
And in that sense, they're like a blank canvas that the audience relates to for whatever reason, and only at the end do you realize who they are. Like in film, it's like one of my favorite movies, Once Upon a Time in the West, with Charles Bronson, where he plays this guy called Harmonica. You never find out who he is until the end of the movie. Is that something that you think can be done well in comic books, or is it? I think of Wolverine, the never-ending backstory of Wolverine.
Yeah.
As an example, but he has more backstory than anybody else does. I just was curious if anybody.
I think there are some characters that I almost prefer that don't, like the Joker. There's no real definitive where he's come from, and I like that mystery about him.
I agree.
Yeah, and if they answer, that's going to be not near as cool as what you were imagining, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. People can now come up with their own, whatever works for them, and then when it gets put in concrete, they're like, oh well, that's not the idea I had in my head, and that's a difficult thing.
Well, that's what happened to the Wolverine Logan. Is they were never going to reveal where he came from, but then they made the movies, and they were like, well, the movies are going to reveal it, so we have to reveal it first. So it was almost like the movies are going to steal our thunder, but they never planned on ever revealing anything. As I hope they don't do the same thing with the Joker. I mean, I guess you could say when you do like origins of like that new Joker movie, Joaquin Phoenix, they kind of, but you could just take that out of canon. But yeah, I thought that was kind of funny that they almost forced Marvel's hand on the comic book scene to do that.
Yeah. You know, I think so. To kind of go back to your question, Curtis, my take on it is this: I think that we don't always have to know who a character is or where they're from. I think, as kind of Pete touched on, sometimes mystery is kind of cool and fun. I think the thing that we have to know something about the character, though, right? Even if it's not their origin, we kind of have to know what their purpose, what are they doing, what are they after, what are they trying to accomplish, why are they there? I mean, there's some of those questions that we kind of have to know, because otherwise they're just this random character wandering around that has no purpose, right? Now, the asterisk on that is, well, okay, it may seem like that, but the writer really knows because they're going to go somewhere. Okay, all right, I can buy that if you can tell me that. Yeah, I know where this seemingly random character is going to go, but I think that you still got to then have something else for the reader, because if all your characters are randomly wandering, then they're going to be, they're going to be lost in all of them. So I think that, yeah, I don't think that you have to reveal origins and backstories immediately. I think that well, Curtis, you and I in this I realize, I just now realized you may be in fishing here. You and I've talked about this a little bit. I think part of the times is what we've got a story to tell, right? And and sometimes we say, but before I tell you the story, I got to tell you this and then get to the story. Well, that's not always the case, right? That's sometimes you just tell me the story. I don't need to know all the stuff that goes on in the back. And what you do is start your story and then tell me, oh, this thing happens. Well, I can tell you now that, the reason I know this is because I did this in the past, or this is where I'm from, that kind of thing. Reveal it as you know it. And
I
the
am
beautiful
back.
uh, the thing about it is you can tell the reader what you tell the reader this, what they need to know when they need to know it. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
It's funny, we've been talking about, maybe this isn't the greatest time to bring this up, but I'll bring it up anyways. I was talking to my friend, and I was just kind of like, we'll use Star Wars as an example. That was a conversation. It was like, well, after Return of the Jedi, it's like I just considered Luke Skywalker's story over. But he's like, no, I want to know more. And I'm like, how much more do you want to know? And he's like, I want to know everything that happened up to his death. And I almost wonder, it's kind of funny, where they came from seems more important, but do everyone else ever have that desire that when they get to a character, they want to know everything that happened to the character, even after the end of the story itself? I always find that really weird. I was like, yeah, when Return of the Jedi ended, that was the end of Luke's story. I didn't need to know anymore. They lived happily ever after, or whatever. But yeah, it was kind of an interesting question. Kind of going the reverse. I didn't know if it was a great time to bring it up, but the reverse.
No, I think because it felt like his story was complete. So
right.
you don't. But someone like Darth Vader, when he appears in the first film, Star Wars, you're like, well, how the hell did this guy end up wearing a big black suit?
Right.
So you want to know about him. You want to know how he got to where he was. But for Luke, you're like, well, actually, the story's done. I saw him from the start, from when he was nothing.
Right. It's just and I see it more and more with a lot of stuff nowadays, that people get the characters, like they have to basically illustrate the entire life story of these characters outside of the context of the story that made them famous in the first place.
People fall in love with their characters so much that they just want to tell you everything.
Right. Well, sometimes I think kind of takes away from the initial story.
I'm kind of like that. But I want the further adventures of, I don't care about the backstory. Yeah. I want, okay, what happens next? They've had this wonderful adventure. They've wrapped up that particular story. Let's do another adventure, because I can't get enough of this character.
Yes.
Strange enough, and so in that same context, when things come out, if there's a sequel to something like comic book, movie, or whatever, does it irritate you if it's a prequel to the original story? More, in other words, I don't want to do a prequel. I want to know what comes next. I don't know what comes before. Am I the only one that sometimes feels irritated by that?
No, I don't like prequels.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, obviously, as a comic book fan, we all want to know what happens next. Otherwise, we wouldn't be reading multiple issues of comics. We wouldn't know what happens next to the characters. But how they grew up isn't necessarily all that interesting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and this goes back to our conversation, right, Curtis? Is like sometimes I really don't care what happened in the past. Just tell me the story now, right? What's happening now?
Well, the funny thing is, I was just thinking this week about our conversations about it, and this realization that there can be this long story. You don't have to negate the person's backstory or origin, but the question is, in their whole lifeline, what's that window of opportunity for the reader to get in there? It doesn't negate what happened to them before. It doesn't negate what happened after. But what's the interesting part? It's like when we're on here and we tell our stories about being in the industry. I don't tell you about the time I made 40 copies and the inkjet messed up and got on my hand. That's not the part that you want to hear about my story. It happened a lot, but that's not the interesting part. So it's kind of, I guess it's the editor's part, as Roland knows. That's like, okay, well, this is the chunk that's interesting, and this is the window. And that's the challenge, right? And that's what I'm learning by communicating with Roland about writing stuff like that. Is what is
and sometimes it's hard to convince a writer that that's the case, because you want to tell them, but this doesn't matter. This doesn't really do anything. But the writer's like, but I'm using this one line in there that I really love. Like, okay, find another place for it, right? It's like, I really want this thing to happen. It's like, but it, maybe it's neat, maybe it's cool, but it's not really working, for the story.
What I learned from that is that that still exists. Like if I'm writing that still exists in my head, and that's great for me. But that doesn't have to be necessarily what they get told, Yeah,
I think if you can slip in nuggets of information that fit in with the storyline, that's great. But to have all this background exposition is boring.
Yeah, and sometimes I think sometimes writers need to keep in mind that it's okay that a little bit more about the character than the reader does, right? Because you're the one who's kind of giving voice to the character, and if you know more about them than the reader, well, then that's okay, because that just means that you're able to give that character a good voice.
Exactly. It's like that TV show 24. I was talking to my wife about this, and could you imagine if that show 24 was literally in the time, like you see him spend 20 minutes making a sandwich, and then he goes to the bathroom, and it's like, how good of a story would that be? And then he's on call waiting for like a half hour of the show. Do we really want to see that version of 24? Not so much, right?
I really want to see. Now I want to write Curtis's backstory. I want to show him being Sifu like doing kung fu, and then do like this one page of him like trying to get ink off his hands. Look at the printer trying to get ink
off. Okay, so we got a couple questions here, and then we need to get to our Wayne Hall comics review. So Noah the Hyper Potato says, does anyone have a favorite character whose origin really speaks to them, despite it being a lesser known character?
Could you repeat that?
Do you have a favorite character whose origin really speaks to you, despite it being a lesser known character?
I like Blue Devil. Blue Devil was like, it's not really one of the major, most popular characters, but there's something about this guy kind of who's, if you don't know, there's like a stunt man and gets trapped inside this kind of stunt suit that makes him look like this demon. And gives him
Blue Devil is cool. Yeah.
Isn't he cool? Yeah, I mean,
he is cool. He's cool. And I was amazed he shows up in the Swamp Thing TV show as well.
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
Oh man,
I've heard that's
and I was
good.
like, no way. Yeah, he's really good. I've just finished it. I'm ashamed. It's sad they only did one season, but it was really good.
Oh wow, I'm on that.
I suppose Alfred would be mine.
Alfred the butler.
Yeah, I mean, there's versions of him where he's just quietly in the background being sarcastic, and making a pithy comments to
Oh,
Bruce.
I still
And I
contend
like
Lego
that.
Batman is the best Batman ever.
He is a good Batman.
He's the caretaker. He's the
Yep.
mom basically, and he's being sarcastic. That's me in a nutshell.
I mean, I've always liked Commandy, and it's
Oh,
not
man, me
because
too.
he's. I guess maybe it's because the origin is his world, the world he lives in, really. But I think I love him just because of the cool stuff you can do with
During our
him.
comic review, Pete, I got to show you something.
Oh, cool.
Since you said you like Commandy.
Yeah, I do love it. I'd love to draw Commandy.
Yeah.
DC, if you're listening, I want to draw Commandy.
So, anybody else? Favorite character?
I've always, let me see. Well, there's I always liked the comic Strangers in Paradise, and I like the origin or backstory to the character Kachu.
Oh yeah,
that was good.
Yeah, but it almost seemed like, was that the whole? I don't know. It's not the whole story. It's not. Now that I'm thinking about it, no, it wasn't. But I always thought it was very interesting. I thought that was one of the more interesting. It made her character a little more interesting to read. That was the first time
there was always something new being revealed every couple of issues. Like, okay,
like what was going on with her or whatever.
And
so,
see,
yeah.
that's a kind of a cool way to reveal and build character. You know, is do it a little at a time, kind of as you need it, as the story requires it. That you build it and reveal it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe because she's in a comic coming up here, but I kind of like Miss Fury's origin, her 1940s origin anyway, the public domain origin. I kind of like that. Is it literally she was in a costume on the way to a costume party, and stopped and saw something terrible. Yeah, I saw that too, Eric. Eric Doxson says, I saw Becca trying to shake the ink off her hand. I saw it too. Yeah.
It's been a long day.
But yeah, so she just stops and helps out a situation, and then suddenly she makes the newspaper, and there she is, her character. She was initially called Black Fury when she was when the strip first ran, and then they changed her, into the strip. They changed her to Miss Fury. I don't know why that happened, but the strip was first called Black Fury. But yeah, I think that's kind of a kind of a simple but cool origin.
Was she just randomly decided to just stop a crime, and then became
she was on the road, she was driving and saw it happening, and oh no, they need help, and yeah.
The actual epitome of the Good Samaritan. Like that's her epitome of her entire backstory. She's a Good Samaritan. Yep. That's kind of it. That's kind of cool. I actually do kind of like that one.
Yeah. So I forgot to say, Eric. I read Eric's second comment before his first one. The first one just hello. Dempsey said, "Oh, I still have your issue of Miss Fury from Full Sail. The issue had a chase between two female characters. Yeah, that was probably three or four. And Wubba Fett says, "Ooh, I know." And he's talking about Marble and Mud, and he says, "I love them already." So we're jump right back into the characters. We were talking about building characters there, and Dempsey Blackman had a question, and he said, when working with writers or artists, do you wait for the story to create the character design from scratch, or wait for input on a concept for the character? So I'm going to read some in between the lines here. I think this is, I think he's talking about collaboration. And how does that work out? Anybody want to talk about that? The way you're doing it? Of course, I know, Curtis, through your project you're working on, it's just you. So.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I mean, it's all, it's a one-stop shop. So, it just kind of, actually the way that I've been treating it, to be honest, is because I have my video game and animation background. I've really done almost like a development, so I've spent quite a bit of time kind of going back and forth between writing and designing the characters, and kind of sometimes they inform each other, like I had one idea, one version of the story and all that. And then when I got to the design process, it changed it remarkably, and it pushed it in a whole different direction. I have the luxury of time because it's just me, though.
Yeah.
But there's everything under the sun. I mean, I don't know if you remember, one of the funniest development things that I saw with that Malibu Comics Base, which is we just had some of the people have like spreadsheets full of names, just any name that they thought was cool. Steve Lowry and Jason Levine would just put a name.
I remember that.
Do you remember? And of course, it's the 90s, so everything was like Blood Wolf and Dark Blood and Bloody Blood, and all that stuff.
Bloody Blood. That's my next character, Bloody Blood.
Yeah, Bloody Blood, But they just had that. And
blood and guts.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. There you go. That's the great one. That's a great one. Blood and guts. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, they had this spreadsheet at the old office, and if anybody needed a name for a character, you could pull that, or maybe you take the name and use that as an idea. I don't know if they were actually legally copywriting it too at the same time, but it was like hundreds of names. So that's an interesting.
Yeah.
And then they designed the characters around the name.
Yeah. I mean, it was just something that was there as a resource. The cool thing about Malibu is this whole idea of R&D. Like if you had time off, there was always something you could do, and everybody was open to ideas. From the top to the bottom. So that was an example.
Yeah. I mean, so you're sounding a little surprised there, Barb. But I think if we think about just even in comics in the past, Spider-Man. I mean, I've heard Stan tell the story before, and it was he had this concept for Spider-Man, right? And so I would say that name probably preceded the look.
The character, yeah.
So
and the backstory and the origin.
Yeah. How did you do Divinity then?
I had the character and the abilities and everything before. Actually, the names were the last things that I did, and it took me forever to find the names because I couldn't come up with a name for her for a long time because I was focused on the healing factor, and I was going through all kinds of names associated with healing and different origin countries that had healing myths, and looking at their mythological names and putting stuff in the Latin translator and everything. And then finally it just struck me one day, it's like, I'm focusing on the wrong thing. I should be focusing on where her power comes from, not the power itself. Yeah. And it's a divine power, and it's like, divinity, there you go. Yeah, so it's like a light bulb went off. But yeah, that was the last thing that I did.
Yeah. So did you do sketches of the character?
Did I? I wrote out meticulously detailed descriptions.
I was going to say, because if you did, I didn't see them. So you sent those then to Alex Sarabia, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I did.
And so
I have the character designs.
Yeah, and so he did that based on what you wrote out. So do I hear you correctly in saying that some of the first stuff you sent him didn't include the character names?
No, I had about everything.
By the time you sent it to Sarabia, you did?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I had the backgrounds, I had the characters, the bio, what they looked like, how high they were. If you were going to think of a movie star that you would base him off of, like Zach was kind of based off on a young Chris Hemsworth, that type of thing.
Yeah. Somebody else.
I mean, obviously when I've worked with other writers, we've come up with original concepts. I guess from reading the script, I get an idea of what I want the character to look like, and then I do some drawings, I send back to the writer to see what they think, get their input, and we'll work through that for a while until we're both happy with what we want. Usually it's quite quick.
Yeah.
The writers I've worked with have been, including you, Roland, obviously.
Thank you.
Have been quite. They get the relationship between the writer and the artist. They're sort of happy to let their artist do their thing.
Yeah.
So it's usually quite quick. We find what works. The artist finds what they want to draw and what they're going to enjoy drawing. And the writer gets what they had in their head at the time.
Yeah. Curtis and I could probably come up with a list of writers who might not be so easy to.
Sure, no, I've had it as well. I've had it where writers said, "Oh, he's scribbled down what he wants the character to look like," so I've done my thing on it and sent it back and said, "No," and he basically just wanted me to almost trace what he'd done, and that's not fun for me.
No.
Which one of us is the artist? But yeah.
Well, and go ahead, Curtis.
Has anybody seen? I forget the name of the book, but there's this really nice coffee table book. I have it. It's Dave Gibbons showing his development process for Watchmen with Alan Moore.
Really?
And it's just tremendous. You see all his sketches, sometimes on napkins and stuff. And one of the cool things is how they had this interplay, like how that idea of the button was just this throwaway thing he did on the comedian. And then Alan Moore saw that little happy face and then just drove it into the story and made it this running theme. And it's just a really cool book. I forget the name of it, but really need to hear about that process. How it's a collaboration, right? So I think that's something that Pete's saying. If there's no collaboration, then what's the fun, right?
Yeah, and I think that's without naming names, Curtis, going back to some of the stuff that we experienced at Malibu, and I think that's where I saw some of that refusal from some writers to collaborate, right? It was kind of like, this is my vision, you are just the artist, and I want you to do this. And I've I don't know, but I've never thought of comics that way. And maybe it's part of the way because of what Silverline does, the way Silverline works too. But I'm thinking, okay, if Pete's going to be drawing a story that I've written, then Pete needs to be happy and he needs to be having fun. So if I'm asking him to draw something he doesn't like, guess what? He's not going to be very happy for very long, right?
I love drawing fire engines, Ryland. I'll count them on this page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fire engines on this page alone.
Oh, man.
That doesn't bode well for me either.
No.
Oh, Steve Halsey says, hola, senoritas and senor. Steve Halsey is a friend of Silverline, you guys. He is local to me here down in Orlando, and he and his wife run the OCD, Orlando Collectors Deviants. As far as I know, Steve has supported every single Kickstarter Silverline has ever done. So definitely a friend of Silverline. What's up, Steve? How are you, man? I think I'm going to get to see you, Steve, here in a couple of weeks when we go to Leesburg. I think that little show is still on. So that will be interesting to see how that turns out. They did a show in Huntsville this past weekend, or I guess maybe now, the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I think. And so I'm curious to see how that went. I saw the guy do live video the night before, and how they had all the social distancing set up, all the X's for the lines, and the spaces in between the booths. And it was like, okay, this might work. It's weird and looks spacey, but so I haven't been back on to see. I've been wrapped up in Kickstarter stuff, but yeah. So more fire engines for you, huh? Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh, yeah.
Every time he hears a fire engine, he breaks into a cold sweat.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'll talk about the question here, where the question was about collaboration on character designs. One of the things, so not all characters, and so Becca's actually working on some character designs for an upcoming comic that we're working on. And so for these designs, I think I sent you the character descriptions too, didn't I, Becca? So
you did.
Okay.
I haven't gotten a chance to read it yet.
I'm not quizzing you on it. But so one of the things that because there was like 9 heroes, right? And some of them I had a strong visual sense, right?
Yeah.
So there's a guy, one of the characters is called Burnside. Do you have him at all? Do you know?
Burnside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so the idea for this character is essentially that he has these big, massive sideburns that act like Dr. Octopus's tentacles, right? And yeah, there you go. And so I really didn't have much more along the lines of that, except I gave in the description, I gave a little bit of a historical side note. Is the term sideburns comes from General Burnside, who was a Union general in the Civil War, who had these big, massive. We call them sideburns now, but they didn't call them sideburns then.
Wow.
I don't know what they called them though. It's the thing. Just
mutton chops.
really. So
Mutton chops. So they
so
came-
is
they
Mutton
came-
chops. They're mutton chops.
goes all the way down. So mutton chops not the
yeah.
same thing as a sideburn, or it's not a different thing.
I don't know. Mutton chops comes down to, it follows the sideburn all the way down to the bottom of the jaw.
Like what Lemmy wears from the Aces, the Motorhead, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so I included that and said, hey, we might go for kind of the Union Civil War general kind of look. Other than that, really, I didn't care. I just wanted these big long sideburns that are going to act like Dr. Octopus's tentacles, right? And that was it. I knew what I wanted him to do. Because Cece says they're longer. Okay. And Steve said, yeah, Lake Collecticon is the name of it. Mutton chops are longer than sideburns. So, so anyway, that was really all I had for the characters. Like, okay, this is what I want him to do, right? Because obviously the title is Rejects, and so trying to think of some goofy characters. But then, when I saw the illustration from C. Michael, I'm like, this is perfect, because I saw these big long sideburns. I'm like, that's exactly what I want. I want these big long sideburns, and the rest of it for me was kind of like, I don't care so much, because if this is something that he's going to have fun drawing, hopefully Becca have fun inking, then yeah, I'm good with this. That tends to be the way to go for me. Now, sometimes though, I'm like, so this other project with Marble and Mud I mentioned earlier, I said I wanted one of the characters to be like a Creole. And I went to, and this is going to have to be a note for the colorist, right? And I said, because the story's set in New Orleans, and I went to the internet and I said, this is the kind of skin tone I want this character to have. And so I wanted to be very specific with the skin tone, because this is what I want here for this character. And that's kind of a tough thing sometimes to communicate in comics, is, it's either when you have it's either a black skin tone or a white skin tone, but it's hard to communicate those kind of in between skin tones, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Yeah, sometimes, it's just, for me, it's very different in the way that the character creation is done. But I personally try to give the artist enough information and then let them go wild. And then, unless it's just something that I just go, no, I'm pretty flexible, because again, I have to realize the artist is going to be the one drawing this, and they've drawn something obviously that they like, right, in the design, so, or they wouldn't show it to me, right? They're not going to show me the stuff they don't like. And so that's kind of what I'd take into consideration.
You had asked me earlier about my character designs for Divinity, and I had written out physical descriptions, and kind of ethnicities and how long their hair was, or they're curly, straight, whatever like that. And then I gave all that to Alex, and here's the
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I don't know if I can. That's
very nice.
Yeah.
That's Divinity.
Cool.
See, and he came up with these, and he shot these to me, and he says like this, and there's another one of Olivia. This is Olivia.
That's cool.
Yep. And then there's Zach. And I said, these are perfect. I said, the only thing I might make a difference on was make Zach just a little bit more slender, a little stocky. But other than that, I liked everything that he did. Came up with.
Yeah.
So that's what we ended up with.
Yeah. So yeah, I know that I've seen some writers where they have maybe an idea for a specific logo or a costume element. Will do a little, cheesy little sketch that just says, like, here's this logo element kind of thing, or here's this costume element, and then go from there, leaving most of it up to the artist. So shoot, who was the question from? So Dempsey, I think. So I think the consensus you can see here is that you definitely want the collaboration. Give the artist as much as you can from the character, the personality, and kind of what you want from the character, and then let the artist just let the artist do the artist thing, right? And this is why I am such a one of the reasons I'm such a strong advocate of the Marvel plot first style. But that's a whole nother story. Okay, so we've run through our questions here. So unless somebody else has anything to say about the backgrounds and things like that, we're gonna move over to talk about names. Yeah, everybody ready to talk about names?
Yeah, that's
I already did.
All right, so yeah, we did that all off. We weren't streaming when we talked about names, did we? I don't think we were.
Well, she was talking about what she got the name Divinity.
Bloody blood, yeah. Yeah. Okay, Kasisi's got a good question. He says, do you ever find that you've created too many characters? Perhaps I should ask, have you ever cut characters from your comic? That's a good question. You ever cut any characters from your story?
I just cut 2.
You did? You just cut 2?
Yeah. I was writing my synopsis and I was trying to figure out how to make it work. And I actually went backwards to the end story because I know how the climax was going to be. And I worked my way back. And there was these 2 characters at the climax. And I'm like, yeah, just waste. It's just a, waste of screen. Yeah,
I don't need them. Go away.
Yeah. Gone.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever cut anyone.
I think I might try and squeeze them in later.
Yeah.
To a later storyline, perhaps.
Right.
Yeah.
But I've not written enough comics to say I've cut
I
anyone.
don't have a lot of characters to begin with.
That's probably the best thing to do. Keep it streamlined.
Yeah. Well, I that is what I have a tendency to do. I have when I cut them, and yes, I have cut them. I will save them usually because more times than not, there's something about that character that interested me the first time around. So I'm like, okay, I've created this character, come up with the idea for the character, the concept, or whatever. There's something about it that has interested me, so I'm going to hang on to it. Now, doesn't mean with absolute certainty that I will use it, but I'm going to hang on to it with the intention of bringing it forward in another story. In fact, there's a story that so Alex Gallimore will be doing the Demons miniseries that follows the Cat and Mouse story. That story has changed considerably, and I've cut characters from it. So yeah, absolutely do. And I think Kasisi is one of the things we kind of talked about before. If they don't serve, Curtis kind of talked about it. If they don't really serve a purpose in your story, then cut them.
I have a question just to kind of tee off that is, has anybody done something where you have a character or 2 characters and you mold them together? Like, okay, I have this character who's this way and this way, and then you're not going to just fold this into the same character. Has that ever happened in the creative process for anybody at all, or is that a no-no? Or I'm just curious.
I think I've done that, but I can't think of an example. That sounds like something that I would do, just to make it more simple. No, I'm trying to think. No, I think I have, but like I said, I've had one where I've had groups of characters. I think I did write an old West tale about this cowboy lost his soul, and I think he was fighting like Halloween type like werewolves and a Frankenstein, and I think he was supposed to fight like a pack of werewolves, but then I just distilled it down to one character to fight. Sounded, more stuff like that. Like I don't want to draw a bunch from. We'll just do one, something like that. So yeah,
You don't want to draw so many fire engines. You just draw one. I mean, werewolves, right?
yeah. It's the next time you have to have an entire house surrounded by cop cars. That's what Peter gets to draw next.
One, two,
Oh,
we've got 3 police
Wait a
cars
minute.
here as well. Don't worry.
Did you? Yeah.
I'm still recovering from multiple panels of the Gothic mansion in Cat and Mouse.
Oh. Did you read the plot for number 4 yet?
I haven't.
Okay.
You haven't sent it to me.
Oh, I don't think I uploaded it yet. Oh, you know what? I think I was withholding it until Alex finished the last page. I'm done with it, so it's ready. But since we're waiting on Gallimore's the last page, I think I'm withholding it until I'll send it to you though. It's done. He asked for lots of freedom, so there's this one big chunk that says, "Okay, here's your choreography chance." But yeah, there are fire engines and police cars in that one too.
As long as we burn it down permanently, I don't care.
Although sometimes you get the win. I don't know if Roland remembers, but there was this comic book called Nightman that Malibu used to publish, and there was one issue where you remember? Did you have the issue? There was one issue where he blacked out, and there was a double-page centerfold spread where it was just black ink, all black with word captions, and we were like, "This is the best paycheck for whoever's inking this." Yeah.
No, I did it.
Somebody penciled it and put the X's in. Did you do that?
I did the issue where he was doubled. He had his mirror image.
Oh yeah,
I remember that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Pete, I think you have to request somebody gets knocked out for like 2 panels. two black pages.
We could also do it in a snowstorm.
Yeah, little John Burns snowstorm thing. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know that I want to say yes, I have. As far as combining characters, but I'm trying to think of an example. I can't think of a specific example, but I want to say I have memory of having done that before, thinking, you know what, I don't really need both of these characters. I can kind of combine these things. Of course, since we have a tendency to talk about superheroes, I don't know that I've combined powers like that, but maybe things that okay, I need this character to do this in the story. So I don't really need 2 characters. This one character can do the same thing, and so I can get rid of this other character. That makes sense?
Yeah, good to
know. So that was Kasisi there. Yeah, good question there. He says for names, he says, do you find good? Back to names. Do you find that you shy away from using the same letters when naming multiple characters? Ooh, I like that question. Peter Parker, Betty Bryant.
I did not. My comic has 2 characters. The initial character's name is Boomer, and then his comrade is named Doom. So 2 O's. Boom, Doomer. And I thought about naming Doom something else, but it just seemed to fit well, and so I named him that. But I did think about it, and for a while it bothered me, and I thought about changing it, and then I was like, you know what? I just like the names for both. So what? Screw it. That's what they get. And then it feels weird because there's a third character named Crystal. So it's Crystal, Boom, and Doomer. So it sounds like her name should have a double O, but it doesn't. So she's the anomaly, I guess. Yeah. But I have the affirmative on that. Have done that.
Yeah.
I tend to shy away from that. I don't really like to do that when you've got two the same letter. No. But I did do when I did do Divinity and her brother Zachariah. I wanted it to be catchy. Their nicknames are Zach and Vinny, so it just kind of rolls off the tongue. And I did that on purpose because it's kind of catchy. Zach and Vinny.
Yeah. Well, so I was gonna say let's talk about why, and because CC has actually an asterisk to that question that I didn't actually read. We'll get to it in a second. Well, let's actually talk about why do you think what would be the purpose for Peter Parker?
Well, I know why.
Stan did it.
Yeah, I know why Stan did it.
Why?
Because he just couldn't remember any names, so he named him Peter Parker, Bruce Banner, so he could just remember all his characters' names. That was just straight up memory. That's what I've heard him multiple times talk about that, which I think is funny.
Say that.
Yeah.
But those, but do they? But I think I was trying to ask a leading question that I didn't
Mhm.
read very well. Do you think those names are memorable?
Absolutely. I mean, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of like the grand traditions in comic books is, you know, Clark Kent. I mean, it's different letters, but the same sound, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
That's true. It
Very
is.
catchy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I think there's something to be said about the name, you know, Peter Parker, for instance, being memorable. You can remember Peter Parker. You know, maybe we should go through a list of character names to see which ones
Lois
who
Lane.
do you remember? Lois Lane, yeah.
And there's a syllable thing with some of them too. Not all of them, but you know,
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne,
Lana
Peter
Lane.
Parker, Clark Kent. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, Lana
Especially
Lane.
if the stress of the syllable is on the beginning of the word, you know.
Yeah.
Reed
Reed Richards,
Wayne. Yeah, you have the stress on the first part of each. So there's always that. Bruce Wayne is the only one that doesn't match. That's
Tony
kind of weird.
Stark. Oh, come on, Tony Stark.
Yeah.
That's my boy.
Yeah, Tony Stark. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think there are plenty of examples either way. But I guess my question is, does it matter? I mean, do we want to stay away from the Peter Parkers and Bruce Banners for that reason, or does it matter? I mean, I know people with real names like that, don't you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know like a John Johnson.
See, they see.
Yeah.
John Johnson.
That was my grandfather's name, John Johnson.
Really?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Not right now.
You don't have any friends.
I can't
now,
think of any. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I just don't have any friends at all, and they you know. But no, I'm just trying to think.
Yeah.
No, you get some really interesting names. I mean, even mine, you know, Aaron Humphreys does have the stress in the fort. Anyway, yeah, you can go over this. Like, I can sit and think about this for a while. Okay, so.
Dempsey Blackman says he thinks he thinks it was on purpose to remember easier, talking about the Stan Lee stuff. So there's a second part to Cassisi's question, right? So he says, all right, do you find it shy away from using the same letter when naming multiple characters? I.e., will your hero and villain ever have the same letter for a name?
Oh, that's interesting.
So would you ever name, you know, would Superman ever fight Sportman? I guess S is right. Oh, Lex Luthor. There's another great one with 2 L's, right? Yeah. So what about that? So I will tell you this. One of the things I intentionally try to do in the stories that I write is I try to make sure the characters have unique names within the cast. So I try not to have a Susie and a Sally, right? In the same cast. I can have one or the other, but Susie and Sally are too similar in name and sound, so I don't want those 2 characters to be on the same cast, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. Yeah, all of my characters I have names that are even vaguely similar. There's Zach, there's Vinny, there's Olivia, and then there's the Enforcer, which is our mysterious, you know, villain guy.
Yeah. Well, you know, I just now thought about it. You know, Cat and Mouse, their first names are Brett and Bobby.
Yeah.
But their last names, which I don't think we've really talked about much in the comics, Brett's last name is Huffman, Bobby's last name is Vasquez. So, And the fact that I just saw Barb yawn made me look at my clock and go, "Holy mackerel! It's 11:15." Man, so we didn't talk about name meanings on live, did we? Someone tell me I'm okay. So is it important that names have meaning? And I don't mean like the superhero name, I mean like the character's name. This will be the last question. Is it important that the name of your character have some kind of meaning at all?
Well, I think mine's self-explanatory.
Yeah, divinity.
I don't. Yeah, a superhero's name, yes, is their code name.
Yeah,
certainly. But, I guess your character. No, I don't think so. A rose by any other name would still smell as sweet, right? So.
Oh boy.
There's my theatre training coming back.
Yeah. Suddenly, all the American girls are going, "Oh, all right."
No, the character becomes its own person, or hopefully it becomes its own person. So the name. I guess
I don't know. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't know
No. Just I wouldn't give it a name I don't like, so I've got to keep using that name.
So do you ever? And confession time for me. Answer is yes to the question I'm about. Do you ever choose a name of someone you don't like for the villains and disguise it a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. So obviously, if you don't like, a Billy Smith, you can't name the character Billy Smith because that's too obvious. But you can name him William Smith, right? Or William Smithy, right? You can disguise it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Becca says yes. I say yes. Anybody else?
I have a tendency to name throwaway characters after family members.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Do that.
Yeah, but you don't want to name your villains after your family.
No. These are throwaway characters,
Okay,
the gas station attendant, whatever,
Right.
When I was in video games, I worked on a fighting game, and I named almost everybody after a member of my family, and it was awesome because they played the game, and I saw my mom and dad fighting each other as their characters, and that was like art becomes reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. Yeah.
I know I gave I don't know if there's any meaning. I mean, obviously, if my main character is a young god of lightning, so I named him Boomer, but he was supposed to be young, so I wanted to give him a younger sounding name. I didn't want to give like Thorathons or something like lightning. So I wanted to give him something that sounded almost like a nickname, something that sounded a little younger.
Yeah.
Maybe a little more innocent than and I guess I did that a little bit on purpose. And also I just like one syllable names. I don't like to give my characters last names a lot. I don't know why. I just give them one name. I don't have any last names.
They don't have to have names.
They don't have to have names. No. So yeah. But I'm thinking now, I don't think I've given any of my characters. Well, no. That was one that was a combination of it. That was Night Fang. So that was a combination. Yeah. So I don't give them last names. There's no last names in my universe.
Yeah, Eric Dotson says my character is named after my best friends. Yeah, so one of the things that I did in the Malibu Miss Fury series is so the genealogy of that character is traced back from the original Miss Fury. So because the original Miss Fury existed in the 1940s and we were doing our series in the 1990s, we wanted to draw some connections to the character. And so the genealogy of that character are actually family names of mine. From my family, if you go back and look at them, if you know my family, you're like, I know who that is. All of those. But other than that, yeah. Okay, so this was a good talk. Time got away from us. Thank you for all the good questions there. Everybody out on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch. Sorry. Appreciate that. Got to keep those questions coming because as you see, that just helps us roll right through these streams. So we're gonna call it a night. Brett, you want to put all of our mugs back up on the full screen there? As we do, yeah, all of the mugs.
Okay, I'll have to get dressed.
So don't forget, everyone, like and follow and subscribe to all of these different places. It helps us to get the numbers up. We're actually we're talking about running some specials here with some giveaways to try to get the boost our numbers on both YouTube and Facebook, and on the page, and possibly on Twitch as well, to try to get some numbers up. So we're gonna run some contests, maybe involve some comics and some artwork. Don't forget we have the merch page. Please don't forget we have a Kickstarter. Go check out the Kickstarter. At the beginning of the stream, let me refresh here. At the beginning of the stream, we had 50 backers, and we were a little shy of $500. Still the same place, still 50 backers, still looks like $7 shy of $500. I'm asking me to do math. So only $500 to go to make the goal. So get out there, and if you can't back, share it. Share it with people who you know would like some cool comics. Remember, these comics are finished, so all we need is the funds to print them and ship them to you, and then you can hold them in your hands. If you're waiting for Divinity and Twilight Grim, that's what I've done yesterday and today. I've been bagging comics and taping boxes and sealing envelopes. So hopefully we'll have our first batch go out tomorrow. They won't all go out. Sorry, I can't. My fulfillment team can't get them out that quickly. But we are working on them, and they should start to go out. So be looking for those. And we will go around the clock here, and everyone tell folks where they can find you on the interwebs. Starting with Curtis. I see you on my screen,
Sure.
but I forget you don't see my screen.
Not a problem. Yes, I'm Curtis Fujita. You can find me on Facebook, Curtis Fujita. You can also find me through my martial arts website, on YouTube and Instagram. That's Tiger Crane 805. And you can also find that same school on Facebook, Tiger Crane Kung Fu.
Very cool. Barb, what about you?
My name is Barbara Kaelberg. There you go.
You brought that home from a convention, didn't you?
I did. I have a bunch of them sitting around my studio here. And you can find me under Facebook, Twitter, and DeviantArt under this name. I'm the only Barbara Kaelberg on the internet. I'm not hard to find. You can just Google me.
Becca, how about you?
Hi. You can find me on Facebook at my name, Rebecca Winslow. Twitter, which I always forget my name because I forget to use it, but I think you have it, right?
I'll put it. Yeah.
And Instagram at comic art.
That was a very southern sounding hi.
Me?
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, the rest of it wasn't, but the hi was very southern sounding.
Nice sleepiness kicking in.
Pete, how about you?
Yeah, so it's real simple. It's Instagram is primarily the main one, but it's all the same. Peter Clinton Art, and that's Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. But Instagram is where everything goes.
Okay. Instagram mostly, right?
Instagram is, I find, a magnificent medium for artists. Yeah.
And Aaron, how about you?
You can find me on Facebook, Humphreys Illustration, or under my name, Instagram at ALH3810, which I have to change that soon. I'm getting new business cards, so I got to change that soon. Webtoons, you can find Gollings and Webtoons. Just search Gollings, you'll find it. It's the only one on there.
And we've also talked about Godlings as a stretch goal.
Yes.
Which I'm kind of thinking. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking we might. I'll send it to you. Make sure you're okay with it. But I'm thinking we might go ahead and maybe announce those. We haven't reached the goal yet, but we're within striking distance. So I'm thinking we might announce those and try to push us on up over there.
Yeah, definitely.
So
yes.
Excellent. And yeah, so just as a reminder, everyone, all of these will be in links in the description somewhere, whichever platform you're using. I'll make sure that I put the links there. All these links that you've heard. You can find me on Twitter at ManRoland. You can find me on Facebook and an assortment of other social media places. I'm probably most active. If you're looking for most active, I'm most active on Facebook. Although the last couple of weeks I've cut down on my social media quite a bit. But you can also Silverline, www.silverlinecomics.com is our website. That's where we make a lot of announcements. We've got an email list, so you can find the email list, sign up from there. Please do that because we'll try to let you know information before anyone, even if it's just a few hours. We'll try to let you know. So anybody else have anything to say to close off? Are we good?
We're good.
All right. Well, don't forget tomorrow night. Hold on. Let me check my calendar. Tomorrow night we're on live with who? Brad Tomty. Tomorrow we're on for Silverline back in the day, and who is doing a lot of our logo designs today. So we'll be on one-on-one with Brad Tomty. Not sure who's going to do the art yet. I have failed to line someone else. But and then be back here Wednesday night for the Wednesday Wham crew. And until then, make mine Silverline.
Silverline.
Good night, everyone.
Hey.
Ciao.
Bye.